Stephen A. Smith just stepped into one of the WNBA's most controversial debates, and this time, he didn't hold back. His comments came after Sophie Cunningham publicly defended her position on women's sports, while Britney Griner remained at the center of intense online controversy. At the same time, Caitlin Clark continued to find herself at the heart of another debate, whether the physical treatment she receives on the court is being handled fairly by officials. What makes this story so explosive is that all of these issues have now collided, and when Stephen A. Smith decided to speak, he turned an already heated conversation into a national debate. When Sophie Cunningham spoke about protecting young girls and women in sports. Cunningham said she wanted to protect young girls who should not have to compete against biological males. Her delivery was calm, but her message was extremely direct. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't attacking anyone personally, and she wasn't backing away from her position. When reporters asked Cunningham to explain herself, she doubled down. She said she believed protecting children was important, and that young girls involved in sports deserve protection. She also pushed back against accusations that her position meant she hated transgender people. Cunningham made it clear that she believed there was room for everyone. But at the same time, she said she believed biological women had rights that needed to be protected. That distinction became one of the most important parts of her argument. She wasn't presenting herself as someone who wanted to exclude people from society. She was framing the debate specifically around women's sports and competition. And then she brought up Title IX. Cunningham argued that Title IX helped create opportunities for generations of female athletes and that protecting women's sports remains important. Her comments immediately divided fans. Some praised her for speaking openly about an issue they believed other athletes were afraid to discuss. Others criticized her, arguing that her comment unfairly targeted transgender athletes. But Cunningham wasn't finished. She said she had received plenty of negative feedback and accusations of being anti-trans. Her response was that she had never said she hated the transgender community. Instead, she said she believed in love, honesty, and protecting women. That statement became even more significant because of what happened next. Stephen A. Smith entered the conversation. And unlike many commentators who tried to stay somewhere in the middle, Smith chose a side. Smith defended Cunningham's position and went after Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve for wearing a shirt supporting transgender children during a nationally televised game involving the Indiana Fever. Smith called the decision irresponsible. His argument was straightforward. If you're coaching a women's basketball team, he believes you should be concerned about protecting female athletes. He argued that the debate wasn't about whether someone should be allowed to transition. In his view, the question was whether a person transitioning from male to female should compete against biological women in women's sports. Smith also suggested that many people inside the WNBA may privately share concerns about the issue, but don't feel comfortable saying so publicly. Whether that claim is accurate is difficult to prove, but it became one of the most talked about parts of his commentary. Smith also criticized what he viewed as the WNBA's silence. And that's where the controversy became even bigger. Because when a league doesn't directly address a controversial issue, fans often fill the silence themselves. Rumors spread, clips go viral, old incidents get brought back, and suddenly, events from different seasons are connected into one massive storyline. That's exactly what happened with Caitlin Clark. Clark has become the biggest attention magnet in women's basketball. Every game involving her receives enormous coverage, and every physical interaction can become a social media debate within minutes. One of the players frequently mentioned in those conversations is Britney Griner. The source points back to incidents involving Clark and Griner dating back to 2024. One moment involved contact around Clark's eye area. Another controversy centered around physical play and the way fans believed officials handled it. Then the debate continued into later seasons. Fans began collecting clips showing Clark taking hard contact, questionable screens, and physical plays that they believed should have resulted in fouls. Now, here's the important part. Basketball is physical. Officials miss calls. Players use screens. Contact happens on almost every possession. One missed foul doesn't automatically prove that a player is being targeted or that officials are biased. But when fans believe they see the same type of situation repeatedly, they start asking bigger questions. That happened again during a 2026 matchup involving the Indiana Fever and Connecticut Sun. The source describes a moving screen involving Clark and Griner. The play became controversial because fans believed the contact should have resulted in a whistle. But there was no foul. And the frustration became even greater because Clark reportedly didn't attempt a single free throw during the game. For fans who already believed Clark wasn't receiving enough protection from officials, this became another piece of evidence. Then came an even more controversial moment. On July 22nd, 2026, the Fever defeated the Sun 123-88. During the game, Clark scored, turned toward the scoreboard, and pointed. She was given a technical foul. To many viewers, the punishment seemed strange. Clark had spent the game dealing with physical contact, but pointing toward the scoreboard resulted in an immediate technical. The source says the league later changed the classification of the violation from a personal delay of game to a team delay of game. That only fueled more discussion. Was the original decision simply a mistake? Was it an officiating judgment that went too far? Or were fans seeing a larger pattern? There isn't enough evidence to automatically answer those questions, but the perception itself has become a story. And that perception matters because Caitlin Clark is not just another player anymore. She is one of the biggest stars in the sport. When something happens to her, millions of people see it. A missed foul involving an unknown player might disappear after the final buzzer. A controversial call involving Caitlin Clark can become a headline. That's the environment the WNBA is now operating in. And it's also why Sophie Cunningham's comments became so powerful. She wasn't speaking from outside basketball. She was speaking as a player. Stephen A. Smith wasn't simply discussing a political topic either. He connected the conversation to the future of women's basketball, the league's business, its players, and its audience. But critics have pushed back hard. They argue that transgender athletes should not be turned into targets because of a larger political debate. They also argue that controversial claims about individual players should not be treated as facts without reliable evidence. And this is especially important when discussing the rumors surrounding Griner. The internet has circulated claims about her detention overseas, social media posts, and an alleged DNA test. But circulating a claim doesn't make that claim true. Without credible evidence, those allegations should remain exactly what they are, unverified claims. The same caution should be applied to the officiating debate. Fans have every right to criticize referees. They can replay footage. They can disagree with calls. They can argue that Clark deserves more protection. But several controversial calls do not automatically prove a conspiracy. And that's where this story becomes bigger than one player. The WNBA is now dealing with an enormous increase in attention. Its stars are under a microscope. Its officials are under a microscope. Its coaches are under a microscope. And every controversial statement can become a national story. Sophie Cunningham has made her position clear. Stephen A. Smith has made his position clear. Critics have made their positions clear. And Caitlin Clark continues to play through all of it. That's perhaps the most remarkable part. While the internet debates her, Clark still has to step onto the court. She still has to shoot. She still has to pass. She still has to take contact. And she still has to perform while millions of people analyze every possession. The bigger question now is what the WNBA does next. Can the league have difficult conversations about women's sports without turning them into personal attacks? Can it protect female athletes while treating everyone involved with dignity? Can it improve officiating and communicate its decisions clearly? And can it address rumors before social media turns speculation into supposed fact? Because silence can create a vacuum. And when there is a vacuum, the internet fills it. That is exactly why this controversy continues to grow. Stephen A. Smith decided to say what he believed. Sophie Cunningham decided to stand by what she believed. Critics pushed back. Fans took sides. And Caitlin Clark remained right in the middle of it all. The WNBA has never had this level of attention before, and with that attention comes a completely different level of scrutiny. Every foul matters. Every statement matters. Every viral clip matters. And every controversy can become bigger than the game itself. Maybe that's the real story here. This isn't simply about Stephen A. Smith. It isn't simply about Sophie Cunningham. It isn't simply about Britney Griner. And it isn't even simply about Caitlin Clark. It's about what happens when women's basketball becomes a cultural battleground. The WNBA now has to navigate sports, business, social issues, player relationships, officiating, and an audience that is watching everything. The league can ignore the noise. But the noise isn't going away, because Caitlin Clark is still drawing massive attention. Sophie Cunningham is still standing by her position. Stephen A. Smith is still talking. and fans are still demanding answers. So the question isn't whether this controversy will disappear. The question is what the next chapter will look like. And if the WNBA doesn't address these debates clearly, the internet will continue writing the story for them. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more WNBA stories, controversies, and basketball analysis. And let us know in the comments, whose argument do you understand most in this debate? Stephen A. Smith's, Sophie Cunningham's, or the people criticizing them?